Good afternoon and welcome to Property People. Today I'm with two of my very favourite property people. That's Piotr Rusinek and Jay Howard. They are both auction experts, well known in the property industry, well known as property experts. Piotr has been working with investors, both on the buy side and the sell side. Investing with them, advising them through various auction transactions for a number of years. Jay has worked on the inside of one of the biggest auction houses in the country, Auction House London, and is now setting up as well to do something on his own. So we'll find out a little bit more about that as well. But both of them ultimately bring a huge wealth and depth of knowledge to the property business, and very, very popular with all the property people that I've come across so far. So recently you've also started this 9 o'clock coffee mornings, which have proved to be really popular. Lots of people tuning in, including myself. So yeah, going to be more popular than Richard and Judy, or like Johnny Vaughan and Denise Van Houten. But already really, really good stuff. Always good to hear from you guys. So thanks for coming on. And since this is kind of fresh, and I want to find out a little bit more about you. This is the first time you've been on Property People, and I want to, because we will probably do something again at some point, but just so that everybody can get a little bit of your background. Who wants to start? Piotr, do you want to go first and tell us a little bit where it started and how you got to where you got to now?
Yeah, sounds good. I don't know how far back should I go, but I'll start with the fact that I came to the UK when I was 18. And I always wanted to study here. And for some fun reason, I thought Aberdeen was a great place to go to. But I first came to Manchester in 2005. And I started studying in Aberdeen in 2006. I studied economics and finance, and graduated and came to London. And on my way to London, I went for a meditation retreat. And over there, I met someone who offered me a job in property. So that's how I got into property, basically. And about 6.5 years ago, I set up my own business, basically assisting people buying and selling properties. And I've been doing this since then. And I did my own deals, quite a few of them. And I mainly specialized in auctions because of the speed that it provides, and also the certainty. When I was working with clients, I always wanted to make sure that I work with people who do what they say, and the auction is a perfect place to verify people's intentions very quickly. So that's basically how I got here. And so see, I asked Jay to write a book with me about 2 years ago, and 1 year ago we got this book launched, and it's been quite a success since then. We sold about 2,000 copies, and now we do business together.
Wow. 2,000 copies you've already sold of the book. I forgot to mention that. I should have mentioned that in the intro, to be honest. That is quite a phenomenal thing to have done together. And what's the name of the book, Piotr?
Before the Hammer Falls.
It is a phenomenal book, really, really well written. And I do know a number of people that have read it, including myself, and think it's really, really helpful. All the hints and tips. And it's obvious that you guys know what you're doing. And I've spent a lot of time with you, so you do live and breathe auction houses all day, every day. And as I said, what you're doing in the morning with the coffees is just testament to that. So thank you for that intro, Piotr. And how about yourself, Jay? How did you get into it to bring you to where you are today?
So I my uncles were in property, so I've kind of always been around it. Even at high school, when they send you off to do your 2 weeks work experience, I did that at Bairstow Eves in Ealing. So every kind of property career I've had up until, I think it was 2010, I think I went into financial services for a short period of time and hated it. But I've got quite a very bit of experience. I've got 3 degrees. Started my first one when I was 11 in psychology.
11 years old, sorry. 11 years old in psychology.
Yeah.
Of course. Why would you? Why would you even need to clarify that?
Unbelievable.
Some people become experts in Pokemon. Some people do psychology.
Well, believe it or not, I collected Pokemon cards. So you joke, but I was an avid collector. I was going to collect them all. I'll tell you that much.
I tried to do property, to be honest, collect them all.
That's it. Yeah. It's like a good game of Monopoly.
Sorry.
So I did that, and then when I was 17, I did a degree in classics, and then when I was 21, 22, I think going into 22, I started my degree in law. I've been buying predominantly properties for investors for about 12 years. 18 years, 12 years specifically buying and selling through auction, and the last 6 years working for Auction House London, as you say there. I've worked with a consultancy company dealing with high net worth individuals, managing an international portfolio of about £3.3 billion worth of real property assets. Did that for 7 years. Did a little estate agency, worked with a developer for a while. So tried to do a bit of everything, just to kind of, gain more of a rounded knowledge and experience. So, but property is a passion. Property is what I love.
Good, great. So all of this stuff has brought both of you through the ranks up to where you are today, well-renowned property professionals. How did you both meet to be able to do things like the transactions that you do together, work together, write a book together? How did that come about?
Well, it's a beautiful story, really. It was a moonlit night, and there were candles.
But you've told me before. Tell us again.
Piotr was probably one of the more one of the most regular buyers and sellers of property through Auction House London. So he was probably one of our top 10 clients in that respect. You get the clients that would normally sell but wouldn't buy, or the clients that would buy and wouldn't sell. But Piotr was managing a good 50-50 average, and was fairly active for pretty much the whole time I was there. Piotr would call, everyone would be speaking to him and things like that. I started going to networking events to speak and do auction updates. And I think Piotr was at a couple of the events. And he was like, "Oh, you seem to know what you're talking about. You work for Auction House. I'm running these one-day events, got like auction mastery events for my clients." It was just a client-led event he was running. It would be really, really helpful for them to kind of get your perspective, like a behind-the-scenes kind of thing. I'll do that. I was looking at expanding my network and kind of speaking to more people and making auctions a more viable place for people to buy and sell and to invest and things like that. And I think I did, 3 of those, Piotr?
3 of those, yeah.
Yeah, 3 of those. And then you obviously just get talking, and those were about 3 Saturdays or 3 Sundays. I can't remember which one they were, but and then you kind of meet a lot of his clients and things like that. And he said, "Oh, so, what do you like doing?" I said, "Well, property, and I do some writing, but it's terrible. Mm-hmm. I write terrible fantasy fiction, like it's horrendous. Like I finished writing it, I instantly delete it. That's how bad it is." But little did I know that Piotr, for like the previous year to asking me that question, has been sitting around thinking, "No, I really want to write a book. I want to write a book about auctions." So he hears that story. You probably just kind of dismissed it as thinking, "Oh, he likes writing, crappy fantasy fiction." But something must have triggered, because then he contacts one of my directors and says, "Look, I'm thinking about writing a book. I think Jay would be really good as a co-author. Would you be happy for me to ask him and see if it's something he'd be interested in?" Jamie Royston at the time was my director, and he said, "Yeah, that's fine by us, as long as it doesn't impact his daily work, then that's perfectly fine." Piotr asked me, and I thought, well, actually, you know what? this is basically what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go out there and show people like the beauty of the auction. You know, if you understand how it works and you can manage and mitigate and reduce risk, then it's a beautiful vehicle to buy and sell property. So he asked me, I said yes. And then I think over the course of about 3 or 6 months, we were putting down plans like weekends and evenings of how we're going to structure the book, how we're going to write it, what the content looks like, what the chapters look like, and all that stuff. And it took us about 4 months. Once we got all of the preparation stuff done, it took us 4 months of solid writing, about 12 hours a Saturday and 4 hours a Sunday. And we knocked it out in just over 4 months. So that's the story of, I mean, there's a lot that went into it, a lot of dramas that kicked up and things that went wrong, and you know. But in general, that's how it went. And it literally, we launched the book. I think was it the 30th or the 31st of April?
30th of April.
30th of April last year, and we're knocking on the door of 2,000 copies sold.
Amazing! That's phenomenal. That's a phenomenal amount. And what's the way that you're selling it? Are you selling it through Amazon? Are you direct selling off your website?
So it's mostly things, mostly through Amazon, and also events and partners that we've got. So we're partnering up with Essential Information Group. So they are sending out a copy to every new subscriber. We've got partnership with Property Investor News. They're sending copy to every new subscriber as well. And we also have a few other partnerships that basically helped us reach more people.
Amazing.
And then the rest is Amazon. So quite a lot of those books sold on Amazon.
And you and so it was your idea to write the book about property auctions, Piotr. I mean, what was it that you kind of, what triggered the wanting to write a book? Is it because you've just been spending so much time in it, you get asked so many of the same questions, you thought, here, let me put it into one place so that it can help everyone?
Yes, so that was the main driver. So I did obviously quite a few workshops, and then I would go to auctions, and then every time I'd go to an auction, it's almost the same things that are being asked over and over. So I thought, why not put a book together, and then that kind of helps dealing with clients. And I'll give you one example of like that really shows well how this book performed. Is I had a client, I was speaking with her for about 2 months. She was introduced to me by someone else, and basically she wanted to sell a property in the auction. It took us 2 months of talking and me explaining things, and then we talked over the phone, and I said, where are you based? And she says, King's Cross. Okay, well, how about I come out and I meet you? I came out and I meet her, and then I'm like, here's my book, and here's with your property. And she's like, okay. And a month later, the property was sold. And basically, that's the beauty of the book, and that was the reason why I wanted to write it. You know, I wanted to put good content into the book, but some people don't even look into the content. They just like, wow, you wrote a book. Wow.
And that gives you a lot of gravitas anyway. And I mean, to be able to write a book, it's, you know, you've got to be able to know your onions. You've got to be able to know what you're talking about to be able to create something of that depth. And you touched on it a little bit earlier, Piotr, is that why auctions? You know, there's so many different ways to buy properties. Why is the auction, in your opinion, the number one or the best or preferred at least way to acquire, sell, transact on properties?
Well, auctions are great because you know, like everyone teaches, you know, you need to speak with motivated sellers and stuff like that, and auctions is really a place where you need to be very motivated to sell the property, and you pretty much are given everything in advance. The whole legal pack is there. It's you know, the properties are cheap, and you all need to do is do the work, the due diligence, and then come up with a number, and then get the property, and that's it. That's done. And you either get a deal or you don't. But it takes 3 weeks. It doesn't take 18 months. I had one deal where it took us 18 months. It was a £2 million purchase for a client in London, and at the end of that 18 months. By that time, I already evicted the squatters twice. by persuasion. Then I dealt with the council. I spoke with a personal assistant of Jeremy Corbyn, who lived next door to the property, and she got Islington Council to get us the documents that we needed to actually progress with the transaction. I did all those things in 18 months, and then someone else exchanged on the property, and I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this again. Like, it needs to, if a transaction takes longer than 3 weeks, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Well, this is funny actually, because I remember Jay telling me once, especially being on the inside of an auction house, what were you saying? Is it every 6 to 8 weeks you've got this constant roller coaster of building up towards it, getting the hype, getting the brochure out, and then getting to the auction room, and then as soon as that happens, the next day you're on to the next one, and it goes up and down and round and round again.
Yeah, it's a never-ending roller coaster of it's an insane environment. Like, you have to be a certain character of person to like, if you're looking at setting up a property business, and you're thinking, oh, estate agency sounds good, and then you're sitting there thinking, oh, actually auctions sound fun. Don't do it. You've got to be insane to set up your own auction company. But it's a wholesale business, so you're basically an estate agent on steroids, and you're doing 10 times more than what anyone else is doing in like 1/18 of the time that they would have to do it. So like, most auctions will run on a 6 to 8 week property cycle, whereby they'll have 3 to 4 weeks to bring on new lots and print the catalogue, 3 to 4 weeks to market. That's the auction day. Then it all starts over again, because exchange is all the auction. That's all you need. After that, it goes to solicitors and completion, someone else's problem. But it takes your 12-month year down to 7 or 8 months. So, you know, for 6 years I was at Auction House London, flew, because I was living, you know, 7-8 month years, not 12 months. But it's brilliant fun.
And in terms of the busiest times in the auction, because it must be seasonal to a certain extent, what do you find that? I mean, which months do you find that are the quietest? Is it Christmas? That's kind of an obvious one, maybe.
No, Christmas is Christmas, in my mind, is the best time to buy a property at auction.
The best time to buy, and why is that?
But there's probably a bit less of properties being offered, but still, yes, there is. There's some good. There isn't really that much of a quiet period. It's a slightly quieter period, but it's still busy and buzzy.
From the investors I know that love auctions, they say December's the best time to buy because everybody else thinks that there's not much going on. There's less competition, and therefore you get stuff at a much better price.
And sometimes it's a matter of people going on holidays, and sometimes they go on holidays in July, they go on holidays in December, where there is the school season or whatever, the half term and stuff like that. So sometimes that determines who's in the auction. But in general, it's almost always busy.
What's the best time? So if let's say December is a good time to buy, what time is a good time to sell? Is it maybe January, when everyone's kind of like New Year's resolution, I'm going to go buy something this year and start a great project?
Yeah, so the February auctions tend to set the tone for a specific auction company's year. If they run the February auction correctly, that will, you know, the success of that auction will be what they will be promoting to potential sellers and buyers going forward. So the February auction is normally one of the most active. I would say February and September are probably, depending on where you sit in the market in September. If you're second to third week in September, then it's a good auction to run if you're looking to sell. And the standard thing, June and July, because it's sunny and people are in a good mood. So selling in those environments will always do well.
One of the interesting things that I think both of you said to me on different occasions, and one of the many reasons why you love auctions, is because auction, the atmosphere in the auction or the sentiment from the auction results is indicative of what's going on in the rest of the market. The rest of the market takes some time to turn a corner, whereas what happens in the auction pretty much is instantaneous, and you can get a gauge of where the market's going to go based on the performances in those auctions. So bringing it to really where we are today, there's been some significant movements in the way that auctions operate and in the results that the auction houses have been having. So could you share a little bit with us about all of that?
Yes, so I guess at the moment what happens is there is about half of the properties that were going to be offered are being withdrawn because people would rather wait and than sell right now. So there's less transactions happening. Properties still sell for okay prices. There isn't a huge drop in prices that I would notice, but obviously the method is different, and no one can come to the auction room and raise their hands. They have to do it online, and auction houses kind of are trying to find their way in the ground in this market. So it's slightly different, and definitely there's less transactions because of what's happening. Yeah, Jay?
Yeah, I probably mirror the sentiment. I think it's difficult to measure how the auction market is performing because we were expecting changes to come out from the end of January when Brexit was agreed and the divorce bill has been created and all this stuff. We were expecting some turbulence off of the back of that, and we were expecting some changes and maybe some sentiment and all that stuff. But that was all curtailed with this outbreak, this pandemic. So traditional in-room auctioneers have now had to, dip their toe into the online auction market, and they've done so with varying degrees of success. I think if you're a regional auctioneer, anyone above the Watford Gap, I think if you were just doing a standard online auction, just online bidding, I think you're in a really good space. I think there was some really good results from Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, and Birmingham. There were some very good results for just straight online bidders. Compare that to London. You have some auctioneers doing the hybrid approach, like Clive Emerson, like Auction House London, like Savills, like Stretton's, all doing there's an auctioneer standing in front of you taking bids. There's telephones, there's proxies, there's all of these different things. I think their results and the value they've obtained for their sellers and their buyers completely outweigh the standalone only bid online bidding auctioneers. So like you have a look at the Allsops, which I was expecting far greater results based on the quality of their stock. They did bid online only. And I think their results show that. I think in a London market.
Because of it?
Pardon?
They suffered because of it.
Yeah, well, at least their results did. I think if they were to have run the hybrid version of the auction, them and Barnard Marcus, in fairness, I'll throw them into the mix on that one as well. If they were to have done a hybrid auction, both of their auctioneers or groups of auctioneers are more than capable of setting up some staging and running an auction from one of the rooms in their offices. And obviously, if you're just relying on online bids in a London environment, I think you're always going to struggle. I think having that auctioneer talking you through the bidding, introducing the property, allowing telephone and proxy bidders to bid in as well. Especially in this market, you want to create as many funnels.
Yeah, recreating it as much as possible, but in a digital fashion rather than like an eBay model, right? eBay is just kind of click, you see what the highest number is, and you click again. I think
regionally that's been working phenomenally well. Right. I mean, in and outside of the auction house brand, they've been doing very, very well. I mean, you only have to look at the historical successes of I Am Sold, which are very much kind of like Midlands to North based. do very, very well without a representative auctioneer bidding people through. But I think London's a slightly different dynamic, a slightly different market, and needs to be treated differently. So I think the hybrid auctioneers in London are working, and I think regionally the online bidding platforms are working better. So yeah.
Is there a specific type of property that continues to sell right now? I'm thinking some of the people that are continuing to buy, that these are kind of maybe owner occupiers. They've had that eye on that property for ages anyway, so nothing's going to stop them from trying to buy that particular property. I've also heard in the past that things like big scale developments, like 20 units with planning permission, sometimes struggles within some auctions, whereas things like shop and uppers is really popular. Commercial property is generally really popular in auctions. Derelict properties, residential properties go really well in auctions. Is there any trend of property type that seems to perform well currently at the moment, or any trends like that?
I think everything really depends on the pricing. Like if you price the property well, any property will sell at the moment. So people will get attracted to it. They will do due diligence, and then they will still be bidding, and then whatever the final price is, I think things still sell for good money, and pretty much everything sells. End user properties are probably the most difficult ones to sell right now, because people want to go and touch things and view things, and they don't want to make a big life decision based on that. But when something is down to numbers, you don't really need to have that emotional connection with the property. You just do the due diligence and to buy the property. So we saw a couple of weeks ago, there was everything was selling: commercial property, warehouse that was vacant, former public toilets in Gravesend, land, normal buy-to-let properties.
Freehold? They sell a lot of freeholds and that kind of thing. Is that still selling?
Yeah, freeholds. Yeah, everything. Yeah, it's shop is open. It's normal.
Yeah, I think if you follow the principle that pricing is very much key at auction, you need to be driving attention to the property, which is what, picking up on a point that Piotr made earlier. One of the best reasons to sell at auction is to buy at auction. Is you're always told at training courses, or just in general, you're looking for distressed buyers and you're looking at below market value opportunities. Well, auctioneers try and market the properties at least 20% below market value in general. The sellers are motivated. It's a quick transactional process. It's guaranteed at the fall of the hammer. There's your 10% deposit. You're completing in X number of weeks, and if you fail to do so, the consequences are dire. It really is like it's an investor's paradise, and I think, like Piotr says, you get the value right, you will get good value for your property sale at auction every time, if you get the value right.
It's price sensitive. If you get because you mentioned it to me, both of you, on a number of occasions as well. It's all about pricing it right, getting the guide price right, so that you attract enough interest, and then, well, traditionally in the room you can get a really good auctioneer that can perform really well on the sell side. But at the same time, on the buy side, there is such a thing as a new breed of motivated buyer that goes to the auction that I've come up against on a number of occasions, which is that some properties seem to go well over and above what you think that they're going to be worth, like ridiculously above, which you think if it was with an estate agent, that probably wouldn't happen. Why is that phenomenon a thing?
Idiots. That's unfair. That's really
former
unfair.
Auction manager.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You don't need to read the book. That's everything you need to know. Idiot. No, seriously, you have to understand that the psychology of the auction room, the auction day, it all has an impact on the decisions people make. There are a lot of people, and this is also important, that when they're going to auction, they're buying something, they're all going to be at a different price point. Because some of them are structured differently in their purchasing vehicle.
Yeah.
Some of them have got different tax liabilities in how they're buying. Some of them have got different exit strategies. Some of them have got different costings. There's all of these things to take into consideration. So that 3-bedroom mid-terrace house you were going to buy, Sam, and turn into a 6-bedroom HMO, your pricing for that property is going to be completely different for an end user who's going to turn that into a beautiful family home and live in it for the next 10 years.
Exactly.
So
and possibly live next to their parents or next to someone else from their family, and save millions
the
on
emotive
childcare.
purchasers, so the emotive purchasers are always going to overpay, and they'll overpay. And there's even some long-term portfolio landlords who are thinking, I'm never selling this. I'm just going to yield it in 10 years' time. The extra 15 grand I'm going to spend on the purchase price is going to wash its face in a year or two anyway. Who will just make that decision, and that they're able to do things that we would never consider doing, or we would consider overpaying for the capital value of an asset. But there are so many different reasons. Now, of course, there are some people who get carried away or think that they're buying one thing, and when they actually read it, it's not what they think they're buying. But that's not an impact on value, and it's not overtly a trend, but it does happen, and when it happens big time and badly.
Yeah. So people are just getting it wrong, getting their costings wrong, or like you said, they've got some other angle where they might have amazing build costs because they've got in-house.
So I think we shouldn't confuse the price with the value, because price is one thing, and the value for someone for that property might be way higher. They see completely different value in this than you're seeing. And then that basically means they can pay more because they see this as more valuable property. Whether their view of the value of that property is founded in reality or not, that's another matter. But sometimes it is. And some people.
So time, right? So Piotr, when we started speaking, I was always telling you that I really wanted to find something, but I found it quite time consuming to be able to go out to do due diligence on so many properties. And then I'd go to the auction house. At the beginning, I was like doing 2 or maybe maximum 3 properties. I'd go and do the viewings. I'd do my numbers, and I think, right, I'm going to pick up 1, maybe 2. If I'm lucky, I'll get all 3 of these. And then in the end, I didn't actually quite get any of them. And some of them I just missed out by a little bit. Some of them a bit more. But then I thought, oh my God, now I've got to wait till the next month. So what would you suggest the best way to overcome?
I'd say, because I saw what kind of properties you were looking at, right? And those were the kind of properties that a lot of people were looking at anyway, right? So you were fighting for those with a lot of other people. The kind of properties that I like to buy, sometimes I do still go for those popular ones, even though I know probably I'm going to end up with it. But there's a lot of good properties that have problems, and if you know how to solve those problems, you can buy that property with no one else competing with you, and solve the problems, then make the money. And that's what auctions are really good for. But obviously, if you go for properties that they have a lot of competition, that creates problems. Because if everyone knows what to do with the property, what stops them from actually buying it? It's just the price, and they will drive the price until they're able to buy it. So the key to basically getting deals in auctions is know how to make deals out of properties that are unappealing to all other people. And there's plenty of them.
Obvious ones.
Say again?
The less obvious ones.
The less obvious ones, the more problematic ones, the ones that you see the value where other people don't see the value. So you turn the table. You don't go for the properties where other people see more value than you. You find the value in properties that other people don't see. Maybe they are not, basically they don't know about certain permitted developments. Like the last one that we purchased. So it was this warehouse, 4 workshops in Rusinek. And basically those were units number 1 to 4. And when we bought this, we knew, and everyone knew, that unit 5 tried to get planning for conversion to residential 4 times, and those were rejected. And everyone was put off by that. But when we went there, we looked at it and we knew that they tried a different permitted development that we were going for. And if we could prove certain things, then we would get permitted development. So we're able to buy that property, and within 3 months, we basically tripled the value of it because we got the planning permission.
Amazing.
So, if everyone else knew what we knew, they would probably be willing to pay twice what we paid, because it was they could have more money, they could have less pressures. Like for us, the price that we paid for was literally the maximum price we would go for. Like it would went £1,000 more, it would be like no. But we still managed to get it because we saw some value in it that other people basically didn't see, and we knew how to turn a problem from a neighboring property into an opportunity in our property.
So it sounds like persistence and really good knowledge, property knowledge, is key to being able to find the gems. You've got to be able to find that needle in a haystack. You've got to be able to sift through all of the sand to be able to find those nuggets of gold. But that takes time and experience, right?
Yeah, it does. It takes some data and takes some searching through lots and seeing things. There's so many deals that I missed out on. There was a property that was in the auction 2013, also 2015, I think. Yeah, 2000.
The pub.
2014, something like that. 2013, 14, and it was a pub in Deptford, and that pub was offered with a guide price of £350. I could have underwritten the property at £420,000, but we weren't comfortable with actually being able to get planning for this. And it was a pub with a car park next to it, and my architect said maybe we could get 7 flats in there, 7 to 8 flats. I'm like, great, but what if we don't get it? And then we just walked away from the deal. It sold in the auction for $730, so there was like 150k profit, underwriting profit to be taken on that day. We missed out on this, but then the year later, that property was offered in the auction again. And when it was offered the first time and it sold for $720 or $730, I thought the person who bought it was an idiot because they overpaid for it so much.
One of the guys we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But then the year later, that property was offered in the auction again, and I was going through catalogs, and then it's $1.5 million guide price. I'm like, what? And then it had planning permission for like 8 flats, and
oh my God, you got the planning permission.
Yeah, and now the property is there. It's all built up. It was GDV was $3.5 million or whatever, and was all from a property that was 320k, where someone took a risk on it, and then they knew how to navigate through the planning, and they delivered the results. So
that's it. It's all about the knowledge and it's about the experience. Somebody else knows something. I think that's in most cases. Some people think that these people are idiots, but the fact is, probably in most of those situations, they just know something that you don't know, and that's probably why you've been outbid in most cases.
Exactly.
More recently, we were looking at a property at Allsop's commercial auction. I think it was February auction, wasn't it, Piotr?
Which property was it?
The freehold ground rent.
Oh yes, yeah. That was February. Yeah,
it was a freehold ground rent. It was guided at £15,000. It was being sold by a PLC. They were retaining one of the flats that obviously had a previous registered or secured tenant or something like that. That's now become vacant. So they're sitting on a £800,000 to £850,000 flat for nothing. Thought they'd sell the freehold because they're not freehold managers in and of themselves. And we were looking at it, we're thinking, there's a couple of things that we can do with this. There's interesting management things we can put in place. There's permitted development planning potential, all this stuff. And we thought, for a guide of 15, our maximum bid would probably be about 45. So we thought, we'll go and have a look. It's hidden in the deep dark regions of the auction catalogue. Hopefully, no one's really picked up on it. And if they have, they're probably not going to go to 45 because that's far more than 20 times income, which is how you'd normally value a freehold ground rent.
Yeah.
So we turn up. The auction was taking forever. So we turned up and we left, and then Piotr went back, and then we were on the call, and Piotr was bidding, and it went up to what, 90 something?
91,000, yeah.
91,000. So they paid just over double what our maximum bid was, and we walked away from it knowing that our price point was 45, and we were taking a risk. And we knew that the person who made that bid was still going to make astronomical amounts of money if their primary strategy came off. Now, if they decided on that flat roof that they could put two-bedroom flats on there, the GDV is easily 1.8 to 1.9.
Right.
So paying under 100K for it it's a no-brainer. So them paying like 6 times the guide price had no impact on whether that person overpaid for the property or not, because in terms of real value, they've got themselves a deal.
But you only thought of that after the fact?
No, that's
it's like we knew about this.
Yeah.
But you just
we knew about the potential. But
that.
basically, for us, tying up £91,000 got bigger impact than for that person who probably had another 2 million in the account, and for them it was like whether they paid 45 or 90 or 150, it doesn't matter, because he sees the 750 and he's confident he's gonna deliver it, and even if he doesn't, he's still gonna be alive and have another 1.95 million in there.
It's your cost of risk, right? That's what it always comes down to. These things, it's not always about value. It's what's especially on these speculative kind of deals.
Right.
What is the cost of your risk? And the cost of our risk was £45,000 is good value for us, because if it all went wrong, we had multiple exits in place where we could exit, and
we only 33 by 50 we would recover from this.
Yes, yeah. So I think that just makes the point that, you know, there are things that we've missed out on, and there's things that other people have paid more for, but we don't walk away from those transactions going, that person's an idiot, they've overpaid for it. It's always walked away from, they were able to pay more for it because their value of risk was far higher than ours, and that's what it came down to.
In fact, being involved in a deal like that meant that we had to do our due diligence, understand about leases, understand about permitted developments and all sorts of roof developments, what kind of things you would need to look at, and that's how you learn. That's the best way to learn. People pay hundreds of thousands for courses, workshops, trainings. Those are great, but unless you actually put those things into practice, you don't really learn. And the more we look at things like that, the more we get of deals like the one in Tooting, where we're making £400,000 in 2 months, while it's not every deal is going to be like that, but at the same time, us missing out on a lot of other deals, but trying and learning things meant that we could get the one in Tooting.
And
the data is the most valuable.
Data is the most valuable.
The data that you get from going and not getting is sometimes more valuable than that initial asset, because now we can look at other freehold ground rents in certain areas of certain types of composition and think, right, we know what X, Y, and Z is. How do we apply that to this deal? So all we've done is extended our reach.
Yeah.
So the data is, and that's not data that we've written down. Those aren't solid numbers. That's us being able to flip through a catalogue, flip the page over and point at a property and go, we can make a deal out of this. We can do this with this property. And I think that's something that sets us apart from others, because most people are looking to fulfill a specific strategy. They'll say, oh, this property works, or this property is too expensive, or this. What can we do with this? How can we make this deal work, and how can we move that around?
Yeah, I've sat with you guys, and you're quite thorough, and you do look at like every single lot and think, if no, maybe what angle might there be on this, and you rarely leave any stone unturned. I mean, it's a pretty it's quite intense sitting with you both and going through absolutely every single lot with all of the different things. But
Sorry, Sam. I hope we didn't damage you.
No. I learned a lot. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and it was quite impressive. It's obviously you guys know a lot, because I was doing it the other way. You know, I was thinking, oh, that one looks obvious. That one looks obvious. Let's go for those ones. Whereas you guys are looking at almost, if anything, disregarding the two obvious ones, and then going for things that this looks a little bit different. What's the angle? And then going into a certain level of depth, and then moving on to see whether it stacks on your calculators and this kind of thing. But the one that you mentioned in February is kind of pre-COVID-19. Now where we are, and you know, the Boris bounced, and now it's bounced away. For the rest of the year and through to, let's say, at least 2021, beyond that, it's going to be tricky. But at least for the next 18 months, actually, I'd like to ask both of you, where do you see the market going? You know, global economic depression, doom and gloom, or is it kind of this will bounce back like every other recession? What's your take on these things?
My take is I've been saying for about 18 months that there needs to be a correction. I don't think there needs to be a recession or a crash or anything like that. Although, you know, our financial model is, in terms of our economy, is based on an 8 to 12 year rise and fall, and that's, you speak to economists and they're somewhere in that range, give or take. And every time there is a recession, or you know, it impacts property. It always does, because it impacts people's affordability. Normally, lenders either clamp up or overlend. You know, there's fall through and fall out of any of those situations. I've been, and I probably haven't been alone in saying it, is I'm still expecting a fallout from the Brexit decision. In fairness, I think I've been expecting all of the situations that have presented themselves over the last 5 years. You know, the additional stamp duty, the removal of Article 100, you know, Section 24, ad hoc ad infinitum. You know, there's 50 other legislations that could have severely impacted the property market, but didn't, because the underlining issue of, you know, since 2016 of Brexit has, I think, created a cloud of let's wait and see what happens. So I think that the market has been waiting to have a correction pending the outcome of X, Y, and Z. I think what we're going through now, this pandemic, is a completely unforeseen, unknown and intangible kind of impact that it's going to have on the market. You know, there are a lot of people that think that the recovery is going to be a straight V. Some of them think it's going to be a W kind of recovery. No one's saying it's going to be a U-shaped recovery, you know, like the 2008 where it went down, stayed, and it dragged and went back up again. People are expecting some elasticity in the market. And I think perhaps when the lockdown finishes and some of the other restrictions finish, I think you're looking at a lasting, maybe 2-year impact on businesses in general in terms of cash flow and kickstarting their businesses again once you know, things return to normal. But it's been 12 years since the last property crash, property correction, and although we've been working on a slight plane or plateau of decline, you know, in the last 3 years, it hasn't been significant enough of a correction for it to be classified as a correction. If you're looking at a recession, then you're looking at 2 years decline in GDP, you know, not 2 quarters decline in GDP. But property markets don't work in terms of recession. Property markets work in a slightly different way. So you'd be looking at affordability and unaffordability levels impacting the true value of property. That comes down to, you know, employment, that comes down to wages, that comes down to rentals, that comes down to other market forces and indicators. Does Brexit, once the whole 2-year thing fall through, does that have an impact on people's employment or the wages that they're able to earn, or how much rent a landlord needs to charge in order to get the desired yield for the price that they paid for the property itself. I don't know. I would expect the correction that COVID-19 brings in to be very short term, but I would expect a far greater impact to come in 2022.
Really, you think by that time that's when the real pain is going to start?
Well, I think we would have recovered from COVID quite nicely by then, but I think the true impact in terms of a global economic
interesting
on a global economic platform would be significant. I mean, if you're starting to look at news that's coming out of Europe, you had the Italian Prime Minister saying, we're going to lock our borders and we're looking after ourselves. That's not what the European project was designed to be like. And if you have a look at how Europe has responded, or the bureaucracy of Europe has responded to how individual territories are managing, the COVID breakout and things like that, you're not seeing a united front.
Yeah.
No, and I don't know how long that's going to last, and there will be a big fallout for that. In the 2008 crash, the issue that we had was, UK's biggest export is financial services and has been since Thatcher. And what you had was subprime lending from American institutions underwritten by UK banks into places like Greece and Turkey and places like that, and even Spain and Portugal, where they were offering the same mortgages they were offering in the UK, 100% mortgages, 110% mortgages, or 100% mortgages plus the cost of refurbishment, etc. And although the responsibility in terms of lending has dramatically changed, that landscape has dramatically changed, I think the dependency of a worldwide economic forum is still going to create a domino effect. If one big power struggles, there is a knock-on effect, and I think Europe is very much destabilized, and that will have geopolitical ramifications on our economy and therefore affect the property market as a consequence to that.
Jesus, that sounds pretty intense.
But it's all part of the fun. Life has got ups and downs. You're made and or broken and or remade by those things. It's your ability to deal with those situations or create something out of it. So I don't think it's something to be feared. It's part of how the world works, and you just have to go with it. I think you can't live in a cycle of fear. You have to understand that these things can happen.
Also, this is going to be this could be the start of the end of the European Union as well. This could be a catalyst towards that. I mean, we're already doing Brexit, and you think that now the economic turmoil is going to perhaps have that impact, and that's going to one domino effect to the other. Is that what
I don't think it will be the end of the European Union. I think it's very difficult to wrangle power away from people that have it and like it and want to maintain it. But will it have to change the way it looks, operates, and acts? Probably, yeah. In order to survive, it's going to have to change. And it may be that it won't have the same number of constituent countries in it. It may have more, it may have less. The way those countries interact with each other may be the same, may be slightly different. But in times of these crises, you expect an economic bloc like this to act in a certain way, and I don't think they've done that. And I think that has kind of undermined the principles they espouse. So and that's my view.
Piotr, is your
I don't subscribe to that part. It's Jay's personal opinion.
Yeah,
It is. It really is.
It's their company policy.
Yeah. But then again, Piotr did say that Brexit would be cancelled. So,
But Jay, let's see.
it's not over till that lady sings.
I didn't say it's going to be immediate, but.
So yeah, Piotr, what do you think? Do you think that I mean the majority of investors that I know, and you both included in that, always believe that disruption creates opportunity, and obviously there is going to be winners and losers, and the best thing that we can do is try to be on the successful side of whatever comes out of this. As you said, things stop, they change, and then they grow again. I mean, is that what you're thinking, Piotr?
Yeah, I guess it's all we need to focus on is creating value and focusing on people and creating cash flow, and then the rest is gonna just it's outside of our control anyway. So we'll fall into places, and that's it. No, that's,
Yeah. You know,
I'm not into predicting too much.
I wrote a little blog on my Facebook wall today, and it was just to say that, you know, stick with the fundamentals. That those things rarely steer you in the wrong way. Those things have been timeless over the last 50, 60 years. And they're probably not change in the next 50 years.
Especially right now, it's important because if you just listen to the news, all you can hear of is how many people died and how many people whatever, and how this is bad. And so, like, all you just need to focus on is literally fundamental things.
Surrounding yourself with good people is always a good thing to do. And you guys are part of.
That's why we're on this podcast.
That's why you're on this podcast with the people. Thank you for Brendan that made me do this. It's actually a very good idea. Partners in property.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about and everybody about partners in property before we do wrap up. I think that's something that's been really, you know, everybody's been talking about how great it is. You guys are very, very much part of the community and hosts of one of the London event, I believe. So
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and why people should seek that out and join the community.
Yes, so we've been hosting that. We started Partners in Property London a year ago, and it's a community of property people, property investors, and mainly experienced property people and full-time property people, because we've got an event, a monthly community event, which is always on the second Friday of the month. I mean, it was until the lockdown, and after the lockdown, it's going to come back the second Friday. But basically, it's a whole day meeting on Friday where we've got speakers, we've got mastermind tables, and usually it attracts only people who are in property already because it's a whole day event. There's a really good quality of members. We've got about 105 members at the moment, and it's just a great community of people who do things in property. It's not about talking about property, not about education, training, although there are parts of it to it, but it's all about acting, doing, making things happen.
And you've got kind of a mastermind session as well that's part of the event. And as you say, it's through the daytime and it's all day, so it's not just like an hour or two in the evening with the traditional setup mixing.
So from like 10 to 12, we've got speakers. After 12 till 1 o'clock, we've got lunch, which we provide as well. And then after that, from 1 till 3, we've got mastermind tables where we bring experts in different subjects like commercial property, permitted development, finance, crowdfunding, developments, whatever like you can think. We've got 9 tables with hosted by experts, and people can go to the table that they're interested in, and they spend 2 or 3 sessions with people connecting, asking questions, and just really getting what they need, and that's a super valuable feature of the community, and that's why so many people find it valuable.
It really is a unique environment. So the guys who created Partners in Property like the three of us have been to multiple networking events, evening, daytime, this, that, and the other. And they were going to these events, and they just thought, okay, there's clearly a function here, but it doesn't work. It can be better. And they created this. They didn't create a networking event. They created a community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that really is where like the true power is. I mean, we have a WhatsApp group with 100+ people in it, and I mean, it must drive people crazy who aren't like commenting on it regularly. But it's non-stop, and the quality. We're the hosts and we're knowledgeable when it comes to auctions and certain property strategies, but the quality of the people in that WhatsApp group is astronomical. I mean, I reel off names, but there's obviously data protection for some, but just like some of the people in that community is absolutely astronomical. The stuff that I've learned, like, I mean, you know me, Sam, I'm not a big fan of residential property investments for like residential tenants. Like I come out in hives, like it drives me crazy. But there are people in that group who are, massive residential property landlords, or people who've got monster HMOs or do service accommodation or have X, Y, and Z, and the value that the community provides to the community is I've not seen anything else like it, and it's one of the reasons why we're both quite so passionate about what we're able to bring to people in that community. So when we were running the monthly meet events, we were always thinking, how can we keep giving to the community so that people still get value out of it? And that's basically a massive principle that we both have, which is why we work together now. When it came to the book, Piotr was very, very clear at the very beginning. He said, look, this is not just going to be something to get our names out there. It has to be value driven. I was like, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because I'm driven by providing value, right? So we only get involved in things where we can deliver value. The book, we believe personally that we put as much knowledge and experience in there as we could to drive as much value to people who purchased it. Partners in Property, we host it in such a way that we hope that we provide value to the people within that community. The things that we're doing now with the consultancy and the due diligence reports and helping people sell, we all do it it's all done with how much value can we add to this person or to this transaction or to this deal or to these sets of circumstances. And that's one of the reasons why I think we work so well together, and why I think people like yourself, Sam, and other people in property just like talking to us or doing anything like that, because they know we don't really provide much fluff. You can tell that much. But what we say is, either we know or we don't know. If we don't know, we say we don't know. But if we know, you're going to get full textbook analysis and breakdown and knowledge and experience. So
always approachable, always fully knowledgeable, and entertaining at the same time. I always have a good time with you guys.
Brilliant.
And that's it. Well, before we wrap up though, no, honestly, it's been amazing, because I've been talking about doing this with you guys for over a year now, and for one reason or another it didn't happen, but this is a great opportunity to finally make it happen. One last question before I ask you what's the best way that people can find you. One last thing, which is somebody that's starting out in auctions, what's the best way that they can start to kind of understand about how it all works?
Pick up catalogs. Just look at properties that are in the catalog and do some research. Put some numbers in that catalog, what you would pay for this based on your research. See what those properties sold for, and repeat.
Yeah, repeat until the numbers that you put in there are the numbers that turn up in the auction.
And
or
you can use this as your guide.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna shamelessly promote the book, because we wrote it with basic principles in there that if someone was to pick up and go, I've never been to auction before, I need to understand how this works, by the time they get to chapter 8 or 9, they understand how auction works. The only other thing they need to do is understand how property works. You know, we put case studies in there and principles in there that help with that. But Piotr's right. You need to level up your experience. You can only do that by A, attending auctions, B, picking up catalogues and turning up, watching, not bidding, just being a part of it, seeing how it works. That in and of itself is so valuable and free. No auctioneer charges for a catalogue. No auctioneer charges for entry into their auction. That's just your time, effort, and energy. And if you're looking to make a success of it, you have to give one of those.
There's so much more that I could speak to you guys about. We haven't touched on EIG and some of the tools you use, and so much more knowledge and content in the book that people should pick up, definitely. And then reach out to you as well once they've got a good basic.
People can follow also our YouTube channel, which is Your Property Auctions, and we put a lot of auction content in there. And actually, one of those videos that is a webinar with David Sandeman on Essential Information Group, how to use it, how to look out for things in auction, and he gives real practical tools on how to basically be looking at auction properties. So everything is there. Your Property Auctions on YouTube.
The weekly newsletter is a brilliant way as well. Because we give market commentary on auctions every Monday. So every Monday before, I think normally worst case night.
7 a.m.
What was that?
7 a.m.
7 a.m. So every Monday morning before 7 a.m. Monday morning, you'll get an email from us saying, this is what's going on. These are our views on how things are going in auctions. So, and you can, maybe Piotr will send you the link for that. So when you post a video, you can give people.
Yeah. And yourpropertyauctions.com, and you just sign up to the newsletter there.
Well, yeah, or easier like that.
And then you can find you guys on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah. No, not Twitter.
No, all the others though.
TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
No,
I'm on TikTok.
You're on TikTok. Oh, you've been keeping that secret.
Yeah, well, no, in fairness, the TikTok that I'm on, this sounds ridiculous. No one's going to be interested in this, but I've got a 5-month-old baby girl, and we do TikToks together. So we put funny music on, and we dance, we do funny things. I mean, I've got a TikTok, but there's none of. I've got about 6 videos, but none of them are like public. I've just done it. So I'm thinking maybe it's. I'm thinking it's a thing we can do together as she grows up. Just do stupid videos and things like that. So yeah, I'm on TikTok. If you want to lose all of your productivity in your life, get TikTok and just watch the For You page. Like, you can flick through those videos and 4 hours can pass and you won't even know it's happened. So it's dangerous. I thought Instagram was bad, but TikTok is crack cocaine for the eyeballs.
That's why we love Property People, full of useful tips for all kinds. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a long time coming, and we are going to do this again as well. Let 6 months or so go by and see what happens in the property market, and then we can pick up and review and keep going. But look forward to seeing you all again, giving you a big hug and a kiss. In the meantime, thanks again.
Keep safe, keep well. Thanks for having us, Sam.
And keep the good work with the Property People.
Cheers. Yes. Cheers, guys. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Take care.
You too.